My name is Michelle. I am 31 years old, and at that time, my life in London was moving fast but going nowhere. I lived alone in a small apartment, worked long hours in marketing, and spent most of my money on rent. Every month felt like a race I was barely winning. When my landlord raised the rent again, I knew I needed help. So I did something I had never done before. I posted an advertisement online, looking for a roommate. A week later, Dawson came to see the apartment. He was not what I expected. He spoke softly, almost carefully, as if every word mattered. He told me he had moved from a small town to London for a new job. He said he was quiet, that he did not talk much. While other people tried to impress me, Dawson did not try at all. He was polite, shy, and a little awkward. There was something honest about him that made me feel calm. So I said yes. The next day, Dawson moved in. My life was busy and loud. I went out often, met people, and came home late. But Dawson was different. When I returned at night, he was usually in the kitchen, cooking, or sitting quietly with a book. Sometimes he made dinner for both of us. We ate together, talked a little, then returned to our separate worlds. He never went out. He never brought friends home. He always seemed alone. I began to notice small things. The way he listened carefully when I spoke. The way he smiled politely but rarely laughed. There was a quiet sadness about him, like he was carrying something heavy inside and did not know how to put it down. At first, he was just my roommate. But even then, before anything happened, I could feel it. Something in my life was slowly beginning to change. Living with Dawson was different. My life was loud. I worked in marketing, so my days were long and stressful, and my nights were full of people, noise, and conversations that never really meant anything. I came home late most evenings, tired but restless. London never slept, and neither did my mind. Dawson was the opposite. When I opened the apartment door, he was usually in the kitchen, cooking quietly, or sitting on the sofa with a book. He never complained. He never asked questions. Sometimes he cooked dinner for both of us without saying much, just placing a plate in front of me with a small, shy smile. He seemed lonely. He never went out. He never brought friends home. He didn't talk about his past or his family. At first, I thought he was just shy, maybe uncomfortable in the city. But as the days passed, I realized Dawson lived in his own quiet world. One Friday evening, I came home earlier than usual. I had just argued with my ex-boyfriend. The fight was ugly, full of old wounds and painful words. By the time I reached the apartment, my eyes were burning with tears. I dropped my bag and stood there, trying not to cry. Dawson was in the living room. He looked at me and asked softly, "Bad day?" Something about his calm voice broke the wall I had been holding up all day. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. The room felt suddenly smaller, warmer, quieter. I stepped closer to him without thinking. I reached out and touched his hand. Dawson froze. He looked at me like I had shocked him. His face turned red, and his breathing changed. I asked him a question I didn't plan to ask. "Dawson, have you ever been with someone before?" He looked down, embarrassed. "No," he said quietly. "Never." My heart skipped. There was something honest, something fragile about him that I hadn't felt in a long time. That night, we crossed a line neither of us expected. Dawson was nervous and gentle, like he was afraid of doing something wrong. I guided him, patiently, carefully. For the first time in days, I felt alive. Later, he asked me softly, was I good? I smiled and said, you were perfect. I didn't know then that this night would change everything. That Friday evening, I came home much earlier than usual, but my heart felt heavier than ever. I had just argued with my ex-boyfriend. Old words, old wounds. By the time I reached the apartment, my eyes were burning with tears I refused to let fall in public. Dawson was in the living room, standing near the window. The soft light made him look calm, almost unreal. He turned when he heard the door. Bad day? He asked gently. Something about his voice broke the wall I had been holding up all day. I nodded, unable to speak. I didn't want noise, advice, or drama. I just wanted comfort. Without thinking too much, I stepped closer to him and reached out my hand. Dawson froze. He looked at me like a deer caught in headlights, surprised and unsure. I could feel his nervousness, but I didn't pull away. Instead, I asked quietly, Dawson, have you ever been with someone before? His face turned red instantly. He looked down, then back at me. No, he said softly. Never. My heart jumped. I didn't know why, but that answer made everything feel more serious, more fragile. We stood there for a moment, both breathing fast. I could feel how scared he was, how careful he wanted to be. That night, we crossed a line neither of us had planned to cross. Dawson was gentle and unsure, like someone stepping into a world he didn't fully understand. I guided him, not just with my hands, but with patience. I wanted him to feel safe. I wanted him to know he wasn't doing anything wrong. For the first time in a long while, I felt alive. Not lonely. Not invisible. Afterwards, he looked at me with wide, uncertain eyes and asked, was I good? I smiled and touched his face. You were perfect. He smiled back, shy and amazed, like someone who had just discovered something new about love. I fell asleep that night thinking something real had begun. I didn't know it would also be the moment everything fell apart. Standing in front of that old house, I suddenly felt very small. The trip had taken only 2 hours, but emotionally, it felt like I had traveled much farther. My hand trembled as I knocked on the door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door slowly opened. An elderly woman stood there. Her hair was gray, her face tired, and her eyes carried a quiet sadness. She looked at me carefully, as if she already knew who I was. You're Michelle, aren't you? She said softly. My heart skipped. Yes, I replied. How do you know my name? She stepped aside and invited me in. The house was simple, clean, and very quiet. It felt heavy, like a place full of memories. She sat down across from me and folded her hands. I'm Dawson's mother, she said. He told me about you. And I'm afraid, you shouldn't have come. A cold feeling spread through my stomach. She took a deep breath and began to speak. She told me about Dawson's father, who had died years ago. Before his death, Dawson had made a promise to him, a promise that meant everything to him. He had promised to stay pure until marriage. To wait for the woman he would one day call his wife. When Dawson left you, she continued, he wasn't running away from you. He was running from himself. I felt my chest tighten. He felt ashamed, she said. He believed he had broken his father's trust. He didn't know how to face you after that. I sat there in silence, my thoughts spinning. I had believed he left because I meant nothing. Because I was just a mistake. But the truth was so different, and so much heavier. When I left the house, the sky was gray and low. I walked slowly, trying to understand everything I had learned. I wasn't angry anymore. I was sad. Sad for Dawson. Sad for myself. Sad for the confusion that love can bring. 3 months passed. I tried to move on. I went back to work. I met friends. I smiled when I needed to. But Dawson was always somewhere in my mind. Late at night, I wondered if he was okay. If he still thought of me. If I would ever see him again. Then one morning, I heard a knock on my door. When I opened it, Dawson stood there with a suitcase in his hand. I needed time, he said quietly. But I couldn't forget you. In that moment, I knew this story wasn't over yet. 2 years have passed since that day Dawson came back to my door with a suitcase and tired eyes. Looking back now, I understand how much courage it took for both of us to stay. After Dawson returned, life was not suddenly easy. People talked. At my office, whispers followed me through the hallways. Some said I had used him. Others said I had taken advantage of his innocence. Every word felt like a small cut. I tried to act strong, but some nights I cried alone, wondering if loving me had ruined his life. I even thought about leaving him. I believed that if I walked away, the rumors would stop. Dawson deserved peace. He deserved respect. I told him this one night, my voice shaking as I spoke. I expected him to be quiet, the way he used to be. Instead, he held my hands tightly. I am not ashamed of you, Michelle, he said. I am proud of us. I love you. And I will not let other people decide our story. Those words changed everything. We chose each other, not because it was easy, but because it was real. We decided to leave London and start again somewhere quieter. We moved to a small town by the sea, where mornings smelled like salt and evenings were calm. Dawson found a job teaching history at a local college. For the first time, I saw him truly happy and confident. I opened a small jewelry shop, selling handmade pieces. My life slowed down. My heart felt lighter. Dawson was still shy sometimes. He still blushed when I teased him about our first night together. But now, that shyness felt precious, not fragile. I was there for him when love confused him. He was there for me when the world judged me. True love is not perfect. It does not follow rules written by fear. It grows when two people choose to stand together, even when everything feels uncertain. Our life is proof of that. And I wouldn't change a single step of our journey.